Book hauls are never my favorite thing to do because I have a really hard time summarizing books I haven't read, obviously, but I don't want to do too much research either into what they're about because I like knowing the sort of vibe of a book, or maybe something about the author, something like that. But I don't want to spend like a ton of time trying to figure out enough about the book to be able to summarize it accurately and thoroughly without also, while also like trying to avoid spoiling myself. However, it's been a few months since I have uploaded anything, so I thought that that would actually be a good place to start, is a book haul. It's kind of like starting from zero in a way. I'm going to use this book haul as sort of a starting place for my channel for now. So these are just going to be in no particular order. I have how many books? I have 16 books that I'm going to share with you, and most of these I've gotten in the last couple of weeks or so, maybe the last month or so. I do actually have more books that I have like bought recently, but I'm going to do that as a separate video because they are all spooky books, or ideally, hopefully, they're all spooky books. So the first book that I have to share with you is The Water Outlaws by S.L. Wong, and this is a fantasy book, and it is sort of a like military inspired based fantasy where the main character was a really well trained soldier. Were they a soldier? Arms instructor, yes, and they trained the Emperor's soldiers, but then something happens and they, I think, get accused of a crime, something like that, and so their whole life gets ripped away from them. And then it sounds like they join some other people who are interested in overthrowing the empire for some reason. Maybe there's some kind of corruption involved with why a person lost their, kind of livelihood and reputation, but we will see. This cover is so pretty. The next book that I just purchased yesterday is The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I've never read anything by James McBride before. Felt like something that I should remedy. So this is it's historical, yes. 1972 in a small town in Pennsylvania. We have these grocery store owners, and I think it's a story about sort of belonging and marginalization because most of the characters are either Black or Jewish, and so you start with this sort of close-knit, homey sort of community, and then you gradually discover all the ways in which people are maybe treated as lesser than, or maybe not able to, fully embrace their cultures or express them. So we will see how that one goes. I've heard that it has like a pretty uplifting vibe to it. Then we have Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. This just recently came out as well, and I read The Dutch House by her, came out 2 or 3 years ago, and I really enjoyed that. I love the family dynamic in that, the relationship between the siblings, and so this book has a similar sort of family focus where 2 adult siblings find out that their mother had a relationship with a famous actor back in the day, and so she is kind of telling them this story of what happened with him. I have a few nonfiction books to share out. So the first is Borderland, A Journey Through the History of Ukraine by Anna Reid. I have talked about this book in the past in a previous video where I was trying to read it, I think back in March, but if you'll remember, my copy was printed backwards. So if you open to the first page, it was actually the last page. So I had to read it from back to front, and I just couldn't, it was bothering me too much. So I got a new copy of it. This one is actually a revised and updated edition, and so hopefully it looks like this does discuss the more recent events with Russia, and so I'm going to definitely give this one another go. I don't know if this should be part of my spooky haul. Probably not. I don't think this is like scary. It's more just that the material is Halloween-esque, and that's actually why I picked this up. So I got Stiff by Mary Roach, and this is about cadavers and what we do with human remains. I've read a fair number of books on this topic, and Mary Roach is a hilarious writer, and so that's why I don't expect this to be macabre or creepy or anything like that in any way, but more just interesting and amusing. This is quite a heavy book, and it's also shiny, but this is Toryland, A New Mythology of Britain by Amy Jeff, and let's see if you can see. So there's the end pages, And there are some, there's some art like throughout this book. One of my favorite classes in undergrad was history of the English language, partly because of all the just general history that we got around Britain. And so this is not going to be focused on language, obviously, but more the events. And so I'm looking forward to reading it, and it seems like it's going to be an enjoyable read in terms of like the physicality of and the visual aspects of the book as well. Next book is The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller. This came out I think a couple months ago. I don't have any clue what this book is about, and I don't really care. I just always buy anything that Claire Fuller writes. The last book that I read from her was Unsettled Ground. I believe that was longlisted for the Women's Prize last year or the year before, but she does a really great job to me of combining really rich characters with really intriguing plot. Sometimes I find that books are strong in one of those aspects but not the others. You know, there's a lot of times there's emphasis on one of those aspects of the book, whether it be world building, whether it be characterization or plot, but I find that Claire Fuller really does a good job of balancing all of those things. Not world building, because she doesn't write fantasy, but the other aspects of the books I feel like she really does a great job of balancing. Disorientation, it seems reminiscent to me of Yellowface, but maybe not quite as meta intentionally or unintentionally. I haven't read Yellowface. I don't really have plans to, but anyway, that's beside the point. But this is kind of combining academia and the publishing world and the sort of racism and marginalization that the main character experiences. And I've had this one on my radar for a while, and it came out in paperback, so I picked it up. Now I have 4 books that I'm just gonna show all at the same time because they're related. These 4 are long listed for the Booker Prize. So I have Feasting by Paul Murray, Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein, If I Survive You by Jonathan Escoffery, and Old God's Time by Sebastian Barry. I would have to say of those 4 books, this is the one that I am looking forward to the most because I really enjoyed his last book that made it onto the Booker Prize. The Booker is not something that I follow in the same way that I do the Women's Prize, just because I find the books to be too pretentious. I have a shelf on my Goodreads that I call pretentious, but I liked it, and a lot of the books that end up on the Booker would fit into the pretentious, and I did not like it. However, I do have high hopes for this one in particular. Next one is The Skin and Its Girl by Sarah Cipher, and this is sort of a magical realism book from what I can tell, about a girl and her family is from Pakistan, and there are a lot of themes about like immigration and, you know, generational histories. The opening event of this book is that the main character, her skin turns blue when she's born, and it like a bright cobalt blue, and it stays that color. So I'm really curious how that's going to impact her life, if at all. Is this sort of a metaphor for something? I don't know. I got The Biography of X by Catherine Lacey because her other book, Pew, sounded really interesting to me, but I've never encountered it in a bookstore. This one also sounds like it has a lot of question marks in terms of who the characters are. So this one is about a couple, and one of the people in this relationship passes away. They were a rather famous writer, but a lot of their life was quite mysterious, and they were very private. So their partner goes through this process of trying to learn about their history, and it just sounds like it could be really strange. We'll see if this falls into the pretentious but I liked it category or not. Then I have The House of Eddus by Claire North. This is a follow-up to Ithaca by Claire North, which I have not read, and normally I would feel kind of ashamed at saying that at the fact that I have bought the follow-up book without having read the first one, except I know that I really love Claire North's writing. She's another one, actually just like Claire Fuller, who I feel like does a really great job of balancing plot and characterization, but in her case also world building, because I mean her books always end up in the sci-fi fantasy section, but they're not, you know, it's not epic fantasy in the sense that it is, you know, she's writing in our world. It's just that things are a little bit different, you know, in our world. Usually that's what she's writing about. Obviously this is inspired by mythology, and so I am very curious to see how her writing would change in that circumstance. Okay, the last book that I have to share with you is The Square of Sevens by who? By Laura Shepard Robinson. This is a historical fiction about a girl who I think her father would do like card tricks and sort of make their way through the world that way. Like that was kind of their profession. This takes place in the, I want to say like late 1700s. He passes away, but then the daughter kind of picks up his mantle and gets entree into some pretty rarefied social circles with her fortune telling, and that's about all I know. This is a really neat edition that I had pre-ordered from Waterstones probably last year, and then it showed up and I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. I have that habit of ordering things from Waterstones and then completely forgetting that I have ordered them or what they are about or anything like that. As usual, I hope to get to a lot of those books soon. I hope to get to all of my books soon, but I think that the math works out so that I have enough books to keep me busy for like 4 or 5 years solid, even if I didn't buy any more, and I read over 100 a year, which is my current pace. However, getting over the sort of existential crisis of that question, I do hope to do another video soon with my spooky book haul. I have quite a few new releases that I have added to my bookshelves that are going to be perfect for the spooky season. So I'm going to do hopefully a video about my favorite books that I have already read that are creepy or scary or gross. I just love this time of year so much. I know a lot of people do, so I'm very, very excited to, oh, as you can tell, I have some decor already going here. Hopefully motivation. I need to keep up that motivation. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye.